Dominguez.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Chua.
Here.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Montano.
Here.
Mayor Tran.
I am here. Thank you very much, Pam. Next up here, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand as you may. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next up is the invocation, which will be assigned to me this evening. I do want to use tonight's opportunity to take a moment of silence as our nation from Washington, D.C. to Milpitas mourns the lives that have been lost due to the pandemic, COVID-related deaths. It really is a national COVID memorial this evening, as you may have seen on your news outlets and such. So let us take a moment so that we can remember all the folks that have been lost here in Milpitas. Actually, I can recall one of the first cases of COVID last year. One of our crossing guards, I know that was kind of made public by our city as well, and that crossing guard ended up passing away, COVID related. And here we are now, nearly 1 year later, with just absurd amount of deaths. And I hope that as we move forward as a city, as a nation, that we can wear masks and take the precautionary measures as a nation to really stop the casualties. I do want to recognize the Vice Mayor, Carmen Montano, as well as the City Council for putting forward the face covering order as we kind of took a bold step there as well. And last thing I'll say before we go to a moment of silence is, it's the invocation right now with our City Council meeting, and not too long ago we had a man kind of present the invocation, Rajesh Shah. I'm sure many of you remember him. I think he actually provided the invocation twice last year. I think once for me, and then Councilmember Dominguez, I believe, had him come back for the invocation, but he recently passed away due to COVID-19. We had a Zoom memorial for him. I believe it was last Saturday. So he is one of our constituents, and was and always will be one of our Milpitas family and constituents. And so I think for me, it definitely hit home, or to the heart and home, when Rajesh sadly passed away. So we keep hearing about people we know who may contract the COVID. I thank God none of us here have, that I'm aware. And I think for me, it finally hit where it was someone I have in my phone and someone I know as a friend. So let us take a moment of silence for all those that have been lost and the families that have been affected. Thank you very much for everybody. Yeah, and so let's continue to wear a mask. Really simple as that, and I look forward to seeing folks get the vaccine. I want to shout out to our fire department. I saw a lot of firefighters ended up getting the vaccine initially early on as they released it, and I hope our police department is the same, and we'll go through our city to make sure that our employees and team members and family of employees are protected as they dedicate their lives to public service. So looking forward really to a new day tomorrow in different ways. And I applaud this council for taking a lot of great leadership over the last year as we reflect that just a little bit. And let's continue to do some great things going forward. So moving on here to presentations. Moving on to presentations, we have one tonight. We're proclaiming Martin Luther King Day, of course, here in Milpitas. This is how we do. So I have the proclamation here. I want to thank our city manager's executive secretary for helping me with some of the words here, most of the words, all the words. And so I'll go ahead and read it here. We're going to proclaim January the 18th, obviously yesterday, as Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Every year in January, we honor the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a civil rights activist and a champion of human rights, justice, and equality. Observed this year, yesterday, MLK Day became a national holiday in 1983, 15 years after the Reverend's death. His powerful words continue to inspire, teach, and shape individuals in the United States and around the world. The nation-wide protests during the summer of 2020, including in Milpitas peacefully, are an effort to fight social injustice and ensure the equality for everyone. We must all do better, and I am proud of the community in Milpitas that has stepped up to work for racial justice and social justice. Proudly, the city of Milpitas is one of the first integrated communities in America with a history of diversity and progressivism, and has celebrated Martin Luther King Jr. Day with community activities like our youth essay contest, poster and art competitions, in an effort to support late Martin Luther King Jr.'s message for over 10 years now. We celebrate the strength, resilience, and resolve of the African American community and call on Americans of all backgrounds to overcome injustice, appreciate what we have in common, and commit to building a much brighter future. Therefore, I, Rich Tran, Mayor of the City of Milpitas, and on behalf of the great Milpitas City Council, do hereby recognize January 18th, 2021, like years past and many years to come, as Martin Luther King Jr. Day in Milpitas. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on here to the public forum. Welcome tonight, folks. Quite an interesting evening, I feel like, with recent events here in town. Yesterday, tragic events, and just the haven't seen before wind, and just a weird feeling tonight. But welcome, folks, across YouTube.com and Facebook Live for joining us here today for tonight's Milpitas City Council meeting. And we'll go to the public forum, folks. We'll do 2 minutes tonight. We'll do 2 minutes tonight. Feeling like 2 minutes. So first up here with the virtual raised hand, we have Barbara Jo Navarro. Welcome. Hey, Barbara, you there?
Excuse me.
You, there you are.
Good evening, Mayor
Welcome. Yes, yes.
and City Council reps. Last City Council meeting, you spoke about agendizing a task force for the homeless. And I noticed that it wasn't on the agenda tonight, so I was hopeful that it would be on the agenda in the upcoming City Council meeting, maybe the next one. And perhaps you could specify exactly how citizens or residents could participate in that task force. I'm not sure it's been very clear on how you're accepting members. And I think it's a great thing to do for the city, and in light of what's going on in our city with all the homeless and the encampments in the area, I think we could do better than what we're doing. And so I thank you and the city council for considering this. In addition, in your minutes, Allison McDonald's name is misspelled. It's 2 S's.
I love it. Thank you very much. Good eye, and we'll correct that.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Very, very great words you have. And yeah, I think the target date to answer your concerns just really quick is I think February 2nd is when we're looking to put the task force together and appoint our great residents. And if you're interested, folks out there across Milpitas, thanks for tuning in. If you're interested in the homelessness task force, go ahead and shoot me an email on the City of Milpitas website. You can also go through your favorite council member, and they can recommend you out there to be appointed to this task force as well. Just you can send me an email and CC your favorite council member, and we'll make sure that everybody has a strong chance at being considered. Yeah, I'll reply to your email. Thanks. Okay. All right. Public comment continues. Let's see who we're next. Okay, Irvish Kumar Mehta, welcome.
Vishwan and all the city attorney, city manager. I wanted to mention about and re-enumerate the conversation of the last city council meeting about the ongoing misdemeanor and misconduct that has taken place during the December 2020 meeting. It is to bring to attention that the citizens of city of Milpitas continue to remain stable and maintain the integrity, peaceful environment, while such kind of a misdemeanor that has been ongoing and that's been conducted over the city council meeting been corrected. It is very important that as part of our open government bylaws, such cultural values be implemented within the city of Milpitas, so such misdemeanor and the disciplinary action be taken against it, so that the right set of resources, right set of steps be implemented by the human resources as well as the rest of the city staff member, and they understand that what it is take to develop a human life values as well as the human rights values within the city of Milpitas. It is also equally important to understand that every meeting that is being conducted throughout the city of Milpitas, it is important to maintain the federal officials' standards and as well as the practices as a part of a better business bureaus within the city of Milpitas, as such kind of any kind of a blackmails, extortion, throwbacks, pushback during the meetings considered to be a law violation as per the part of a chapter 41 the United States Code. As well as it is also to understand that there are certain military officials also working in the city of Milpitas. Such kind of a conduct also considered to be a part of our uniform military services justice services, and as part of Article 133 and 134 as a misdemeanor as well. I wanted to let the city staff know about that, put the right corrective actions against such methods, and also appropriately put up the standards to maintain for the city of Milpitas meetings.
Appreciate you. Yeah, go ahead and send me an email with more details. I don't think anybody understands enough of what you're trying to say, so go ahead and shoot me an email. That'd be appreciated. Thanks. Okay, public forum continues. We'll look for anybody else here that's attending tonight. Thanks for folks for being with us tonight. As you can see, we have a pretty neat agenda tonight, so it's great to be together, especially during these times. I feel like these meetings are the glue that we need here in this town. Okay, I don't see anybody else for the public forum. I want to thank folks, and we're moving on here to announcements and future agenda items. Let me go to the city manager first. I always gotta check in with the city manager. I have to. Any announcements, Mr. McHarris?
Thank you, Mayor Tran. I have no announcements this evening. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, that's okay. I got to do it. I got to always make sure I check. Okay, great. Let's see here. For my announcement, I just want to make one request for a future agenda item. If we can ask a representative, maybe government affairs over at PG&E, to provide an update to our community about what the plan is going forward with power outages. Obviously, a lot of complaints around town today. maybe there are people that are without electricity still right now, and I'm really sad that folks are losing electricity and they are losing their refrigeration for their food. And if we can have our city staff at the direction of the city council, just call PG&E's government person affairs professional and have them hopefully come in here at the next city council meeting or two to get agendized, just so that they can update us with kind of the procedures going forward here in 2021 as to how they're going to operate their private business. Folks at home, you know, PG&E is their own company. So I'll leave it at that. I don't want to talk too much, but I'm just gonna look to the city manager to make that call. I don't think there's any opposition to that one, but thank you so much. I'll go here to the virtual raised hands. Okay, next up we have Councilmember Fan.
Thank you. I just want to add on to that request. I know that in certain areas of Milpitas, PG&E has announced an extended outage, and for families who really require power at this time, they're unable to get relocated to a hotel. No hotels are currently taking in folks due to current SIP procedures, and I was hoping that staff could maybe look into that and see if there's any way we can help provide that emergency resource for residents that require immediate power. And the second thing that I was hoping that we can work on is reaching out to the county as they roll out their vaccine distribution plan for potential additional locations in Milpitas, so that we can accomplish mass distribution once additional dosage are, you know, in line. It's super helpful when we were able to partner with the county with the testing location. You know, I think this would really just add on to that.
Yeah, it's great. I think that's great. Yeah, thank you very much, Councilmember Fan. Very well. Yeah, I think it's great stuff. Next up here, we have Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. Let me lower my. Okay, I have two future agenda items. One is probably more directed to Attorney Diaz. Residents with BMR homes reached out to me, below market rate homes, and they wanted to know if they can rent one or two of their rooms because they're affected by the pandemic, and if it's legally okay to do that based on the BMR guidelines. And if it's not, can we do a exception maybe for a period of time for them? So that's my item.
And then Councilmember Chua, would you like that on an agenda, or would you just like an answer to the full council? And I'd probably work with Sharon's team to get you an answer on that as well.
Yes, please. Because they want to know, because they're being affected by the pandemic and they could use an additional income.
Let's get a memo for that one. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll work on a memo and we'll make sure the full council gets it. But thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The other one is to the city manager. I just need an update on how we're managing or taking care of the trash or garbage problems at our homeless camps. If you can do a report on that, that would be good, because we're getting a lot of inquiries about that, and I think we need to respond. And just announcement from the Library Commission, there is a fine-free starting starting 1/1/21. No more late fees, just surrender your books or whatever materials you borrowed from the library. and it's forgiven. So for another announcement is a writing contest sponsored by the Santa Clara Library with the Palo Alto Medical Center. It's a writing contest it's good for 6 to 12 grades. And the first prize is 300, second prize is 200, and the third prize is 100. Please join. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Tran.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, great. Next up, we have Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for the time. At this time, I would like to ask for the kind consideration of this council to bring back an item for a future agenda where we could move forward an emergency ordinance to add worker recall protections. As many of you know, many workers are being laid off in the building, food service, and hotel service industry. And what this would do is would protect the job for those who have been hired for more than 6 months. It would cover full-time, part-time employees, does not include managerial, supervisor, or confidential positions. This is basically we understand that businesses may have to lay off because it's slow, but we want to make sure that those workers who are being laid off are the first ones who are able to get their jobs back once this moves forward. And so I'm more than happy to present a memo, but I would like this scheduled on future agenda item in order to move forward an emergency ordinance on this.
Okay. Can you send us a memo on that one? I think I'm unclear about that.
Yeah, I would like, what we could do is if we could just put it on the agenda for discussion, and then I could bring back a full memo on then at that time.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. When would you like for it to be agendized?
I would, if we could do the second meeting in February, first meeting in March is fine, Mayor. That way we could provide an in-depth memo on this, and I think that would be great. So no later than the first meeting in March, I think would be good.
Okay, great. Yeah, we can agendize it as a discussion to explore 4 more hours of staff time.
Perfect.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Next up, we have the Vice Mayor, Carmen Montano.
Thank you, Mayor. An announcement about, as you know, I serve on the VTA now. And so I have some sad news. Our CEO and manager, Nuria Fernandez, is retiring. Well, no, not retiring. She's moving to bigger and better places. So she's joining in with the Biden-Harris administration. So she'll be moving to Washington, D.C. And she said, you know, this is a chance of a lifetime, opportunity of a lifetime. So she's going to be leaving us. And then I'll give you guys more information on that. But she's been with the VTA for quite a while, I think close to 10 years, done an outstanding job, and she'll be leaving us. So wanted to make that announcement. And the other thing I have is I'd like the City Council to consider bringing the 4 hours to the EDC to 4 hours. So that way we can hopefully move on it. And I would like to take a vote on it today to bring it back with the 4 hours, staff to do 4 hours.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Vice Mayor. I think we already voted for that EDC. It's on the list. Let me check in with our city manager. When is that?
It is on the list. It is on the list, Mayor. I don't know that we have the date, so if you wanted to give
So
a range,
I'd like
you'd like to have that come back.
Yeah, I'd like that to be brought at the next City Council meeting.
Okay, well, I would like that too. I just want to make sure our staff has enough time to gather all the information required for.
Just a point of clarification,
yeah.
if I may. So we already have an economic development corporation. It's a status. like for it to be utilized, it has to be for a purpose. So like, are you requesting it for a specific purpose? So like it would have to be as Economic Development Corporation using the EDC to X, Y, and Z. So like, but if it's just asking to have an EDC, it already exists as a status.
We're already aware. Yeah, we're already aware that one already exists.
Yeah.
We discussed this last
Yeah.
time.
So if we can,
So we're looking to bring it back. Yeah, we're looking to kind
no,
of.
but like you have to like set the purpose, right? So like
Right.
utilize EDC to like say so do a business improvement district, for example. You know, like then that would be the request. But to utilize EDC, like it's very like you need to define it.
That's
so,
what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. So
Okay. Yeah.
thank you very much. Appreciate it. That's what we're doing. We're gonna go over what our options are and how that can benefit.
Shoot. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, great. Well,
Mayor,
yeah.
I think I could take care of this. We're planning to bring this back on the 26th, so we'll bring it to you on the 26th.
Let's do that. I think 26 is fine because we don't want to rush anything.
Right.
Although
That's
urgency and absolutely. Okay, Vice Mayor, anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to note that the EDC Corporation we already have it. The city has already established it. It's just a matter of bringing it back to life, and it's used for multiple purposes. So once staff brings all the information, there'll be more clarity. So thank you for the 26.
Okay, great. So just a reminder there. Okay, great. All right. Is that it, folks, with the announcements portion here? Thank you, everybody. That was pretty swift. I always appreciate that. Moving on to announcement of conflict of interest and campaign contributions. And we'll go to our city attorney, Christopher Diaz.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. We do have direction from the council, so we'll bring those items back in conjunction with the city manager's office. Just wanted to note for the council, the two questions we normally ask. I'd ask the mayor and each council member whether he or she has any financial or personal conflict of interest related to any of the items on tonight's agenda. And we'll start at the end with Councilmember Fan.
None.
Councilmember Dominguez. Let the record reflect none. Councilmember Chua.
None.
Vice Mayor Montano.
None.
And Mayor Tran.
None.
Let the record reflect none to the first question. And then I'd also ask the mayor and council to please disclose any campaign contributions of 100 or more received within the last 12 months from any of the party entering into a contract with the city on tonight's agenda or any development project applicant on tonight's agenda. We'll start with Councilmember Fan.
None.
Councilmember Dominguez.
None.
Councilmember Chua.
None.
Vice Mayor Montano.
None.
And Mayor Tran.
None.
Let the record reflect none to both questions. Thank you.
Take us away, Chris. You could carry on this part.
Next, the council code of conduct. I'll go ahead and begin. Be respectful and courteous. Words, tone, and body language matter. Model civility. Avoid surprises. Praise publicly and criticize privately. Focus on the issue, not the person. Refrain from using electronic devices while on the council dais. And again, that includes the Zoom platform during the course of a council meeting. Disclose conflicts of interest and affiliations related to agenda items. Separate governing from campaigning. The council speaks with one voice after making policy on issues. Respect the line between policy and administration. And then finally, the council will hold one another accountable to comply with this code of conduct. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris. All right, moving on here to approval of agenda. I'm going to take a moment here. I want to make a motion to amend item number 7, which is about our city event celebrations, flag raisings. Also working with the city manager, we want to make sure we add amend item number 7, a motion to amend item number 7 within the agenda to include the National Hispanic Heritage Month, which is September 2021, as well as any flag raisings associated with the National Hispanic Heritage Month. Thank you very much. And I will make a motion for approval of agenda with a motion to amend number 7 to include the National Hispanic Heritage Month.
Second.
Okay, a second by the Vice Mayor. All in favor, virtual roll call. Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Montano.
Aye.
Myself as an aye. The approval of agenda has been approved. And moving on here to consent calendar. Consent calendar, I'm looking around for any virtual raised hands. If your virtual raised hand is up, please lower it. I see a few. I'm gonna go to Councilmember Fan.
Sure. I'd like to add items 12 and 13 onto consent calendar.
Okay, great. I support. I want to add item number 12 as well. I'm right behind you, Anthony. And item number 13, I just want to make sure if we approve it. Let me ask a quick question here to our city manager. And let me go there. Let me go to city attorney on this one. I just want one thing for item number 13, Chris. So item number 13, essentially, if approved, will eliminate the lifetime term limits for all our city commissioners.
Correct. It removes the language regarding term limits that was in the existing bylaws. So that will come out, or the handbook rather. So that will come out. And then it also adds for the youth seats as well. And our assistant city manager is also on, who worked on this extensively.
That's great. That was a great idea by Councilmember Dominguez. Thank you. And one more thing was, so there's no more kind of wait period then. If there's no more lifetime term limits, there's no more wait limit. Okay. Kind of the sit out period, I guess. So the cooling off period of sorts. Okay, great. So yeah, item number 12 and 13, I'd love to put that on consent and support Councilmember Fan. Okay, great. Next up here, we have Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. I'd like to pull item 6, please. C6.
Okay, item number 6, we're pulling 6. Okay, great. And you can always just ask a quick question, but we're going to go ahead and pull it per your request. Pull item number 6. Thank you very much, Councilmember Chua. And if you have a virtual raised hand up, please lower it. Okay, all that was noted. I don't see any further requests for the consent calendar. I'm going to go ahead and move the consent calendar.
Are you making a motion?
Second.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to second by Councilmember Dominguez. All in favor of that consent calendar, pulling item number 6, and we're adding, I think, what, 12 and 13? Yep, we're adding 12 and 13. Okay. All in favor of roll call. Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Montano.
Aye.
Myself as an aye. The consent calendar is approved. Fantastic. And we're going to go straight to item number 11 under community development. Let's conduct a third study session on the Milpitas Metro specific plan with a presentation, discussion, and city council direction on key plan policies related to land use density and intensity. Oh, great. And we're going to go ahead and welcome, I believe, our Director of Planning, Ned Thomas. Are you there?
There we go. I am here. Good evening, Mayor Tran, Vice Mayor Montano, members of the council. Happy to be with you again tonight. I'm here again with our project manager for the Metro Plan, Kevin Riley, and we also have our consultants will be joining us. We have Jane Lynn, Christina Paul, and Tafian Rice Evans, and they'll be making the presentation. I wanted to make just a few very short preliminary comments. We last met with you back in September. It doesn't seem like it could possibly be that long ago, but in the meantime, we've been continuing our work, and there have been some public outreach efforts that have been done, and Jane and Christine will provide you with an update on those. We are here tonight, though, to continue our discussion on the Metro Plan, and our conversation tonight will be specifically around the topic of land use and densities and intensities of development. And there's quite a bit of material to cover. In subsequent meetings over the next month or so, probably next 5 or 6 weeks, we'll have 2 other similar conversations on other topics. One will be on transportation and the other one on parks and open space. But tonight we're specifically focused on land use. And the consultants will go over the details of the project schedule in their presentation. But For tonight, they'll be presenting to you, as I mentioned, the results from some of the public outreach. We've done an online open house and had a survey, and they've got some very good results to share with you. And they also have a draft policy framework and some illustrations for your consideration. And to kind of set the table for the council and any members of the public who may be watching, I just want to say that much of what we'll discuss tonight, and certainly the pretty pictures that the consultants have prepared for you, are aspirational. And if you can kind of fix that word in your mind, it's very aspirational, meaning that they illustrate what could happen. And we're not suggesting that it will happen exactly the way that's shown, or but we want it, the illustrations like this are always helpful to give people an idea about what the possibilities are. So we're talking about possibilities and aspirations. And this is Milpitas, so we set our vision and our goals high, and then we're going to translate those visions and we certainly the direction and the feedback from the council today. We want to be sure that we write the policies correctly, so that as close as we can get, we would like to have what actually happens match those aspirations. And then, of course, we'll work with our development community and our residents as well as the council to see how close we can come to that. And that's our long-range planning process that we've laid out. So similar to what we've done in other meetings, Jane and Christina will lead us through a discussion. I believe they're open to having questions and comments as we go along. As I've mentioned, there's a lot of material to cover, and we're just very excited to be at this point in the planning process and look forward to a great discussion tonight. So with that, Kevin, I don't know if you have anything additional to add, and if not, we'll just turn the time over to Jane and Christina for the presentation.
Nothing to add except, maybe I will say hello again, council. It's been a while. Nice to see you all. And I do want to say I'm happy to meet Councilmember Chua as electronically as we can. But I think one thing I would like to say is thank you very much. Thank you to the council for your leadership, for giving us direction, for being very supportive in this work. Thank you to all the city staff departments who've helped out, to all the outside agencies, to the school district, to the chamber, to all the agencies that have been part of this up to now and will be with us going forward. And then especially thank you to the citizens as well, those who have participated. It's really been helpful to have them be part of this, and we hope more people become engaged as we go forward with this. So it's been a privilege for me to be involved in this. I'm very happy to be doing the work that I'm doing, working with this team. And so again, I will turn it over to Jane and Christina to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin and Ned, and good evening, City Council members. It is really great to be here today with Christina Paul. We're excited to show you some progress and do a little bit of review since it's been quite a while, like Kevin had mentioned. We haven't seen you since September, so we wanted to make sure that we were able to be all on the same page. So if we could go to the next slide. Excellent. So tonight we're really going to just make sure we give you a status update on the project and tell you a little bit more about what we did in the fall in terms of community engagement. And like Ned had mentioned, this is the first of 3 more bite-sized chunks of this incredible plan. So we knew that if we brought all of this to you at once, it would be a little hard to take. So we're bringing it to you in pieces, and hopefully we'll have a better time of it. So next, please. As you know, we're building off of the Milpitas Transit Area Specific Plan that had set in motion a transit-oriented type of development around the Milpitas BART station and transit center. And what was set in motion was really more high density, transit-oriented, walkable neighborhood. And in 2008, when it was adopted, it was really changing the character of the area and making it a place that had more mixed uses and all of that. So what we are doing is addressing really the next 20 years with this plan, the Milpitas Metro Plan. Next slide, please. It's really exciting that the BART station is now open and we can really see the VTA improvements at the transit center and see all of the connections that can be made with light rail and bus. What we're doing with the plan area is, you can see in the dashed red, this was the original outline of the TASP. That's the transit area specific plan. And with the Milpitas Metro plan, specific plan, we're looking at just a little bit more, namely the Innovation District, which is to the east and next to 680. And we're also looking a little bit at the properties set from Main Street as well. And in the next slide, you'll see some aerials, and you'll see also the incredible change that had happened in this area between 2007 and 2019. The transformation was really quite, it was quite amazing and complete. I mean, not totally complete. There's still plenty of spaces that need to transition into this more fulfilled neighborhood. So as you can see, what it was before was low density office buildings and in a suburban pattern. And in the 2019 aerial, you see that there's a lot of new housing and more mix of uses in this area. And it's about, I would say it feels like it's partway there, not all the way there yet. So next slide, please. This is just to illustrate some of the changes in development since 2008 and illustrate how much of the previous specific plan has transformed this area. So what we see is mostly the housing had come in, and then a modest bit of office and some retail. There's absolutely new retail spaces that are along Great Mall Parkway, for example, and that there have been actually, there are some hotel rooms in the pipeline right now as well with the Lion Living district. So this just gives you a sense with the map on the right in blue, the development, the new development that has happened. And there are some outlined areas where future development is already in the pipeline. And there's quite a bit that has been unchanged. And actually, this is what the Milpitas Metro Plan is doing. We're addressing the unchanged parts. Next slide, please. Also, a lot happens between 2008 and 2021. So a lot of things are still relevant from the transit area plan, but there's also things that have kind of moved on, and we're trying to make sure that we're updating it. So we're keeping the things that are really important. There are a lot of other city plans that we're coordinating with right now. We're also making sure that we're updating the goals and policies and all the actions to complete the neighborhood, making sure all those policies really reflect what we want today. And then we're making sure our framework does a lot for including affordable housing and addressing all the infrastructure that is needed to support those changes. So the Milpitas Metro Specific Plan and EIR that is associated with it is its own new document. It is taking, it will supersede or it'll replace the transit area specific plan. Or that's the idea. Next, please. So this just gives you a sense of how much coordination we are doing with other things that are happening in the city. We're trying to make this coordinate with the general plan, which I know you've been hearing a lot of. We're making sure that the housing, we're addressing the housing element update. We're also working with a lot of the things that we're doing also would apply to the Main Street Gateway specific plan that is upcoming. There's also the Parks and Recreation Master Planning that is going on right now. We're coordinating there, and also with the Bike Ped Trail Master Plan and Water Management Plan. So there's quite a bit, especially about the spaces in between buildings and the public realm that we all like to enjoy. And we're coordinating with as many departments as possible. Next, please. This just gives us a little bit of our timeline so you can know sort of the schedule of our project. We started March 6th, right before the pandemic started. We actually had an in-person meeting back then. And ever since, we've been online, and we've had 2 meetings with you so far. And we're about to have the set of 3. We did some online community engagement with a map-based survey and an online open house, and Christina will tell us a little bit more about that in a bit. And upcoming on the next slide is what we're planning to do through the end. And so after our framework sessions, which are the next 3 that we're going to meet with you about, we'll also go to the Planning Commission and talk to them. And then after that, we'll draft the Metro specific plan, and that will go out for public comment and review. And we'll start drafting the EIR. And so by the end of 2021. So with all the changes, we're to basically complete the neighborhood, that's what we'd like to say, the EIR is becoming a bigger effort as well. So that is something to anticipate. On the next slide, you'll see where our vision has really 7 big ideas. And the biggest idea of them all is to create a more complete neighborhood. And completion means a big mix of uses, and to make it a place where it feels like you have everything right around you, and it feels like a neighborhood. It feels more like a neighborhood and not have other bits that are not quite like, they don't feel like they fit. So making sure it feels complete. Next, it includes more neighborhood service and different kinds of retail, especially for small businesses. Next. Also, since this is transit oriented, we really want to make sure that it's safer to walk and bike around. Right now, the connections are not quite there yet. So the Milpitas Metro Plan will really address how to connect and complete that. Next, great. To preserve space for jobs near transit, we're going to talk about the Innovation District quite a bit. So making sure that this transit center has a great access to or have jobs that are right next, that are taking advantage of the transit center. And next. Also to provide a greater variety of shared public spaces. And, you know, there's a lot of different kinds of spaces that support social functions, and to make sure that's all there in the plan. There's 2 more. To provide affordable housing and market rate housing, both. And last one is to enhance the sense of place and identity of the metro area. And we will be talking about that quite a bit today. So when we came to you last time, this is the next slide, we got your feedback on some of these ideas, and we did our best to kind of group some of these ideas from you into 3 groups, and that's what we'll talk about in these different sessions. So today with land use and density, we'll really talk about how to incentivize affordable housing, or these are the things that you brought up. So you said you would like to incentivize affordable housing. You wanted to focus the density in Milpitas Metro, which is a really great idea. This is a very, this is probably the best place in Milpitas for it. And to create opportunities to maximize this space that is so transit rich. Next time we'll talk about transportation, mobility, circulation, and traffic. And here you've made some really great points, and we'll expand on that next time. And then of course at the end we'll talk about the public realm and how to fund it, so the TADF. I think at this point I'd like to hand this over on the next slide to Christina, who will give us a little bit of an update on our community engagement.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and council members. It's so great to be with you tonight. Is it possible for me to share my screen? That way I can kind of do my best to wave my own hands and and so on. It's the same show, but thank you so much. Okay, here we go. Okay, so let me know if there's any issues, but just jumping off from where Jane left off, I'm going to give you a little bit of an update on our community engagement. As Jane mentioned, we essentially went into shelter in place right after we started our project, but we have at the same time really made an effort to reach out to the community and made up, used all the tools at our disposal to really make sure that folks who were at home got an opportunity to give us insight. And actually, we're going to expand that a little bit because we know that while in some cases, actually more people have been engaging in this kind of process because they're at home and they sort of have time and flexibility and access to tech. We just really want to make sure that because this is a landmark plan for the city, we give folks as many opportunities as possible. So what we've done so far is have a map-based public survey. We had over 300 respondents for that survey. We have a planned website. We held a large group of stakeholder meetings at the beginning of the project and continue to check in with key stakeholders. And then in September, we held an online community meeting where we showed a presentation. We had real-time keypad polling so that every participant in the meeting was able to respond to questions on their phones during the presentation. We also had Q&A and we had public comment. And it's a great way for folks who are comfortable in a variety of settings to be able to give as much feedback as possible and to make sure that we hear all of the voices in the room rather than just the folks who are comfortable with public comment. And we have decided that because the scope of the project actually has changed a little bit from where we originally thought it was going to go, and we're thinking about more housing and a little bit more change than was originally proposed in Milpitas Metro. And this is for a variety of reasons, including incoming RENA and the new housing element, as well as the interest of the folks who own the Great Mall in developing residential and interest in the city and really making sure that we support affordable housing efforts. We're going to come back to the community again once we have a draft plan and share that draft plan again in an online open house and community meeting, which will mirror the open house just as we did with our last effort, so that people who can't participate in the live online event can go to a website and answer all of the same questions and get access to all the same information whenever they would like over the course of about a month. And again, please do stop me if you have any comments or questions. We're really happy. We know that this is a lot of information and we really value your feedback. So just to very quickly summarize what we heard in the online open house, we promoted this via our website. We found out that we did an A/B test. If we offer gift certificates, people participate. So we got over 300 participants in this effort. So now we have a really great website database and we're going to make even a bigger effort for our next open house. And you saw the keypad polling and so on that I mentioned. One of the big questions that we asked is what is needed to make the Milpitas metro area complete? This is one of the survey questions. Do they want to see mixed use development, multimodal access so that they can walk and bike around the district, or open spaces? And people really told us that they do want those pedestrian and bicycle connections and they do want those outdoor spaces. So the key takeaways here in order are that folks really agreed with the draft objectives and ideas for the Great Mall, which we'll get into in a little bit more detail. We talked about them last time, but we're going to review. Folks are concerned about safety and crime issues, particularly with the new BART station opening up and questions about vagrancy and so on around the Great Mall. Folks were a little bit concerned about building too much housing and increasing traffic congestion. That's something that's fairly common once folks live in a neighborhood. They aren't necessarily worried about affordable housing, but when we open up the lens a little bit more to be the city as a whole, folks really are interested in making sure to provide affordable housing and building kind of a dynamic urban core around the BART station. Again, folks are really concerned with improving pedestrian and bicycle connections and safety. And folks want outdoor spaces to gather with their friends when we're allowed to do that again, and to do a variety of different activities outside. That would include trails, event spaces, and so on. And so if people, their top 3 priorities were open space, fun destinations, that's like, a restaurant to go to on Saturday night or a park or something like that. as well as safer streets. Folks ranked their top choices here, and you can see those top choices reflected in this chart. People weren't as concerned, as I mentioned, with housing, and the same is true of office. Here again, once folks are in a neighborhood, they generally have a house and a job, so they're less concerned with providing those in their neighborhood. But when we open that up again to the whole citywide perspective, people are more interested in those features. When we talked about the evolution of the Great Mall, what could happen in the Great Mall and over the course of 20 years, we all hear so much about how retail is changing. Maybe some of that change will happen at the Great Mall. Folks said, yes, we're interested in seeing that kind of evolution. 79% of them that was, but people were a little bit concerned about safety, making sure there's enough parking. And again, we're seeing not too much housing, look out for traffic congestion, how do we have open space that can allow us to gather, and how do we make sure it's walkable and green? One of the key findings from all of our outreach is that folks really prioritize pedestrian and bicycle connections over increasing vehicular traffic speed and ease of access. I'm not going to go through all of this because it'll take all night, but this all of the survey responses were summarized in your packet if you want to go through it in more detail. So as I mentioned, we're going to do another open house with our keypad polling and our presentations. And then the EIR brings with it quite a bit of community engagement as well. That's another way that folks can engage in this process. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Jane.
Great, thank you. All right, let's go for a tour, and let's talk about land uses. Just to give you a hint on colors, we are going to use a lot of colors here, but wherever you see red is commercial retail, and if you see purple, it's mixed use. So we have a lot already in place. On the left is what was in the TASP and the existing land use and what you're allowed to do. And then we're going to go on a little tour around our plan area and address each of the sub-districts, the Great Mall Innovation District, Tango, Huret Court, and Main Street. So yeah, let's move on. So for the Great Mall, since this is the biggest part of the new Milpitas Metro specific plan, we've been working very closely and talking to Simon Properties, making sure that they know what we're doing and what we're trying to say in the specific plan. And so they have seen presentations with this information in it already. And what we are talking about with them is the possibility of change and dreaming for the long-term future. Nothing we're showing you today means that they have to do anything at all. In fact, we know that they're not really thinking of making any changes right yet. But we also know that the economic conditions that surround large malls that are one use, those are not very favorable right now. So there may be changes that they want to do in the future, and we want to make sure that they have that possibility. So just keep in mind, they can stay the way they are, and that's fine. But the plan will say that you have permission to do more. Right now, they're only allowed to do what they have. So they're not allowed to have housing at this time. Let's see, next slide, please. So when we look at the whole thing, we're also including the parcels that are on the edges of the Great Mall. So Simon Properties owns the lavender portion in the middle, and other landowners own the edges that are along Main, Great Mall Parkway, and Montague. And so that's really important to know that the most visible parcels are not owned by Simon Properties, but that they're owned all by different landowners. And this is really important. But one of the best parcels to change over right now is right at McCandless and Great Mall Parkway, and that's owned by the VTA. It's the former bus depot. Those bus services have now moved to the transit center. So that opens things up a little bit for a catalyst for a change. On the next slide, we have, again, what was addressed in the TASP. It was, the last specific plan largely avoided the Great Mall, and basically said, stay what you are, but we're not going to require residential, or we're not going to allow residential, so you really can stay what you are. You're only allowed to have 0.5 floor area ratio, that's FAR. So it really can't develop much more than what it is currently. But we see that there is some capacity for change, and what the goal of the plan is to allow for that flexibility. It doesn't say you have to, it's just to allow for that capacity over the next 20 years. So when we look at the economic cycles, we saw in 2007 when the transit area plan, or 2008 when the transit area plan was adopted, there was a great recession and things were looking pretty down. And you know, the developer interest picked up sometime around 2014 or so, and we really accomplished a lot by 2019. So even though there is this uncertainty of the pandemic and what it does to our economy and how things are changing, the fact that we're planning during this time really means that what we put into the plan could possibly come to life in a couple years. So it's really important to consider the long term and your dreams of what it really could be like. So we're going to talk about some things about how it could be. So we want you to imagine what kind of place it could become. And we flashed this slide at the very first presentation to you. You know, what kind of place is this? And maybe there are references to places that are ones that you know well, or maybe there are places that we have yet to build. So the idea is to dream big. And then the next slide I want to say is that we have a really great partner in thinking about Simon Properties and their ability to do more than just malls. They have done mixed use shopping centers all over the country and in the Bay Area. So there's the possibility of this being a transformative space into something that is richer than just what it is today is very high. That possibility is very high. In the next, here they also not only do really wonderful mixed use buildings, but they also plan for nice open spaces and places for people to enjoy as well. So I think those are all great assets. The next 20 years, what could happen? Well, it could just remain the way it is, and you could possibly develop on all the surface parking lots, and that's it. And that seems like a really, good way of making use of that land and making it a little bit more dense. And actually, so develop only surface parking lots. Now, if you dream a little bit bigger, they might take, parts of the mall. It's a huge, huge mall, really, really big. And they might consider a portion of it. It doesn't necessarily mean this portion. It could be any portion. Some of it might be redeveloped, or it might turn into something a little bit bigger. It might be part of the mall. It might be separate from the mall. Anyway, any part of the existing mall might be redeveloped or renovated. So that's another possibility. And then there's the possibility where we don't know what they might do, and what we want to see might be something completely different. And 20 years from now, you never know what people like and what the market says is really something worthwhile building. So that one's just to leave it open, that it could be a little bit, it's like a little bit, it's small, medium, and large as far as the idea for potential changes. And it could happen in many, many different steps. And it may also just never be something else either. And that's okay. This plan allows for that. And just to give you a sense of scale, we showed this in our last meeting. So if you cut out Santana Row, the aerial of it from Google Earth, and just plopped it on here, you could see how much can fit on this property and how much could go here, and how much could really, how much potential there could be here. The next slide shows if you did this with Bay Street Emeryville, and the next one does it with a mall that's a really big popular mall in Los Angeles called Americana at Brands. So there are, there's a lot of different ways it can be reconfigured and configured, and there's plenty of space for something new. And it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be anything quite like those either. So when we were thinking about what could go here, really there's a couple things that we think are really, really important. One is we're so close to the transit center, it should be walkable. So whatever happens in the future, that you make sure that it's easy to get around and that the blocks aren't too big and that you're not just surrounded by surface parking lots, that there's a lot of great activity to see and that there's the structure for it in the way that the streets are all planned out. And then next, the other is to create a nice place for everyone to get together. So there could be a central gathering space where you can have outdoor movies or any kind of events, concerts or things like that. I can't wait for my next concert, really. But and then there could be also nice things like a green linear park or trails and things that connect it and really make it a really nice space. So having that central gathering outdoor space is really a key part of this, how this place should change. It should make sure to have those kinds of amenities there. A really important thing is that it's not just one type of use, one type of land use, is that it's many different kinds of land use. Not only is this really advantageous to have housing there, your customers are right there, that if you also add office and commercial office, that you would have a life that is going on during the workday, during the weekend, during the evenings. It would really have this vibrancy, and it would take advantage of the transit and the commercial attractions at the Great Mall, being a destination with plenty of entertainment. So it really just would build upon what is there. And then the next is to really think about how, like I'm an architect, so I always like to think of the form, and when you think of the edges that are along Great Mall Parkway, how that really, if you have some big signature buildings, that really makes it stand out from what it is today, which is really surface parking lots, and make it a lot more vibrant and urban. And so we're anticipating that the scale of what could be built here is a lot like what you see across the street on Great Mall Parkway. And this is a particular spot for taller buildings. It's not meaning that it goes in any other part of Milpitas. This is a special place for it because it is so close. It means that more people can walk to the transit center. There's 2 light rail stations. It makes it so that more people can take advantage of those kinds of resources and live where they have this convenience where they can just walk to the things that they like to use in their life. So, all right, we're starting to show you a couple of the models as they develop. So you can see we've been busy working in a computer modeling program to kind of illustrate what that might look like. And so the colors, again, yellow is for residential and blue is for office. And then the red is right at the bottom. That's for, ground floor retail like cafes or for stores that are right at the street level. So what we're showing here is a great mix of all of this. And, so there's 2 white asterisk stars and they're on Great Mall Parkway. And I want you to kind of remember where those are because we're gonna look at 2 renderings, so the 2 illustrations of where that could be. So we're gonna do the big unveil now. Here is a view of what it could be like. And this is absolutely not a proposal. This is one of the possibilities of what it could be like if you looked into the Great Mall in the future. You could imagine that there would be buildings with ground floor retail at the edges and a really great, nice shopping street right there. So, and then on the next slide, you can see how the linear park idea might work and how there's an opportunity for art and identity features and banners on the light posts and things like that to make it really clear that you're in Milpitas and that there's landmarks for people to see where they are and understand that they're in the metro part of Milpitas. So hopefully those are, some of those ideas are ones that we're hoping to kind of stretch everybody's ideas and dreams for this area. All right, next we're going to look at the Innovation District. And the Innovation District is very close to the Transit Center. And in fact, it includes a portion of the BART, the land right around BART that VTA owns as well. So when we're looking at that, we're really trying to think of how employment can be near the Transit Center. So next is another model of what we're meaning. So this is like we're flying above 680 and looking across. And right now it shows something that is aspirational, something that is, you know, it may never happen and it's okay, but it's one kind of way to see what in the general plan it states as goals for the Innovation District. So it includes an office campus, it includes something that is within a very short walking distance to the transit center. It's also close to the new housing and the neighborhood that surrounds it, and is close to the entertainment and retail at the Great Mall. So all of those things kind of add together, plus you can see it from 680. This seems like something that, you know, is another node in Silicon Valley. So that's the idea that is being illustrated here. And here we have the asterisks. We're going to come onto the top floor balcony of that building in our rendering and look towards the BART station down the street. So this again is like illustrating our imagination of this area, but it shows sort of that kind of what the Innovation District could look like and how it could connect. This is a new street. This is not Montague Expressway, but it's one that is like an imaginary new street that would connect across Berryessa Creek, and you would look down and you would see the BART station at the very end. And you know, there's a lot of opportunities here to put your special mark of what Milpitas is on here. This is again a rendering that just sparks our imagination. Next is looking at the housing potential that is right next to BART. And this is all kind of part of the same area as well. And VTA, with what they could possibly do here, we're seeing that they could possibly bring in about maybe 1,000 dwelling units. We were doing these models just to test to see if that kind of housing might fit and whether it fits the rules or how it could be built with the construction type of that kind of building. We're gonna move across Capitol Avenue now to Tango. And Tango really has a portion of it that is still filling in and a connection that needs to be made. So it's not just those, but it's like connecting from the blue circle all the way to the brown right there, and the brown being residential. So what will be really important is a planned bridge. It's already funded, and it's a bridge that will go over the Penitentiary Creek East Channel, and it will cross into parcels that will be a future park. And these parcels were acquired last year during the fall. It would connect up to the existing Rathbone Park, and there could be these new streets that connect what are two cul-de-sacs right now. The reason why it's called Tango is because there's Tarab and Sango Court, and they're two cul-de-sacs that are not connected. And when you connect them, you mash the words together, so it becomes Tango. And as you're in this area, you can connect across Montague Expressway with a pedestrian overcrossing, kind of like the one that went up by the BART station, but it would have its own unique design. And then that would cross over and connect the two neighborhoods so that the people in Tingo could enjoy McCandless Park, and the people in the McCandless subdistrict can more easily cross through and walk or bike to the BART station and VTA Transit Center. So that's how we start to make the connections. We'll talk a lot more about those kinds of connections next time, but this just to give you a sort of an understanding of that area. All right, we're looking at, you know, the possibility of fitting about 1,300 apartments in this area. It's rather large and several blocks big. And then we're also looking at more housing in other pockets that have not been developed since the task was adopted. So on Hurrek Court is one. And that one, when we did our test of the model and saw what could fit is, let's see, next slide, please. And that would show around 700 apartments that might fit in that area. Of course, this might happen over phases or over time, and maybe it won't happen at all, but this is what's possible in that area. And then the last portion that we'll talk about today is the Main Street portion, and there's already been a lot of development in this area, and we're seeing that it would really fit and blend in with what is happening. It's very connected to the Milpitas Metro the rest of the plan area. So that is when we tested that with the model, we saw that it could possibly fit in about 500 apartments, new apartments other than the ones that are entitled. So there's the new building on Main Street, and then there's also a senior housing development that's happening there. And then if you infilled, you could possibly get this much. So the counts of all of this is really important because we need to come to an understanding of what it is. Okay, actually, let's see. We're going to look down Penitentiary Creek, East Channel. And this one, we're going to be basically at the Anton Apartments on their side and looking across at there's a bridge that will go into the Tango Park. That is a bridge that is built for emergency vehicle use, but mostly used by pedestrian and bicyclists, so that people can connect to the park and to the district and also to transit. And you can see that there's a lot that can happen here, and the kinds of activities are mostly to enjoy open space and to have walks and be with your pets and your kids and stuff. So this makes it a lot more livable in this area just to have that kind of open space. We'll talk a lot more about this kind of thing in our third meeting. So we'll get to that more next time. But this time we're really talking about density and land use, and we want to count up kind of like what could happen here. And what we see is that there's plenty of space for even more than what we're showing, but to make sure that we're showing something that is reasonable, we're thinking it's about it's the other half of what the task had originally done. To complete the neighborhood, we would be adding in another 6,000 to 7,000 dwelling units, and most of it would be in the Great Mall, but there would be others scattered throughout the plan area. And then when we were looking at the next land use, at office, we were really seeing it as close to transit as possible and thinking about how it could be done in the Innovation District near BART and in the Great Mall subdistrict as well. And then with retail and hotel, we're looking at, of course, most of the retail, but different kinds other than what is there right now. So a lot more neighborhood retail in the Great Mall subdistrict. And then a little bit of retail in the Innovation District to support life in the office campus, or having some shops and places to eat there for lunch. And then also perhaps a cafe or something like that in the Tango next to the park. So those are the kinds of what we would kind of predict might fit in this area if it were to develop like this. And just to summarize all of it together, these in the columns are the different subdistricts that we were looking at. And when you add it all together, it's in the yellow column at the very end. And so when you're looking at the housing, we're showing about 7,000 units. We're showing about 3 million square feet in office. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're talking about a whole campus or office campus in the Innovation District. We're talking about some more retail, but it's different than the Great Mall retail. It's more like small businesses. And we're talking about some hotels to support all of that. Remember, 20 years out, we'll want to go to hotels again. So let's see, I think there is one more slide just to kind of bring it all together to see if we can compare this to the previous specific plan. And, you know, in the beginning, I showed you sort of what was accomplished, and that's in the purple in column 4. But if we look at what I just showed you on the last slide, that's column 5. And if we added it all together, that is what's complete for the whole area. And it really is not a huge jump from what is already in the task, but it completes what has not been developed. So that is a whole lot of numbers. You don't need to absorb it all. We'll kind of walk you through it a little bit more. And I think now is the time for Christina to kind of tell you a little bit about, as we write this plan, it's a plan with policies in it, and to give you a little bit more about what we plan to write.
Yes, this is how we get from paper to pretty pictures. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about land use and principles and policies. Again, stop me if you have anything that you want to chat about on the way there. When we were thinking about how to get, as I mentioned, from paper to this fantastic new neighborhood that Jane has been describing, we said, you know, what are our principles here? How are we going to shape this? What are really the overarching regulatory directions that we want to go in? It's still a little different than vision. We originally thought about this for the Great Mall. How do we think about, you know, as Jane mentioned, we're not going to mandate anything, but they came to the city a year and a half ago or so and said, hey, we're interested in doing residential. And so as they think about evolving that space and the city thinks about more affordable housing and so on, how do we help to shape that? So principle number 1 is that from a regulatory perspective, large sites are going to be divided into zones that prioritize creating walkable street grids. So we've given an example of how this could happen at the Great Mall. And so essentially what we're going to do is we're going to say, you know, we would like to see a grid kind of thing. We're going to regulate some of these areas a little bit differently from one another. And this actually gets to be really important when we get to the housing element, which is coming up. The housing element is due in 2 years. And so that's going to be a pretty big conversation in the city. And the city is going to need to be approaching the housing element fairly differently than from in past cycles. And so it can be very helpful to the city to have the Great Mall in smaller pieces to say, oh, you know, we really think that, you know, Simon is saying that if they were going to build some affordable housing, it would go here. And so we're going to recognize that in the housing element. These other areas we're not going to recognize. So we're going to, from a planning perspective, put it into smaller pieces and delineate a little bit what is reasonable next to different kinds of edge conditions. So what's the best thing right next to the Great Mall, right next to the BART station, and then up here against an existing residential neighborhood. Our second principle is that development will be at a lower scale, adjacent to existing residential, just as I was describing, like right up here, and higher along Great Mall Parkway and other arterials like Montague. Less high, you know, when you start getting into the smaller streets in Tango, Huret Court, that kind of thing. Number 3 is that we will support developers in phasing projects that will prioritize affordable housing and public amenities. So this is helping the city to start to think about if there's going to be a development agreement or a plan for development at the Great Mall. The city really wants to think about that affordable housing and not leave that to last. And similarly with public amenities like parks and plazas and that kind of thing. Property owners will be encouraged to develop and maintain privately owned public spaces where appropriate. So we've been working very closely with the folks who are doing the parks master plan, as Jane was talking about. And we've been hearing a lot, and this is very true of many, many cities, that maintenance and in fact having the city own the park can be fairly burdensome. And what can actually work really well is having a publicly accessible but privately owned and maintained open space. And this is something that happens at quite a few malls, actually. And some malls are beginning to have parks as anchors. So people really come for that, and then they do some shopping as well. So this is something that we're looking at, putting a fairly fine point on and developing best practices around. Then the Milpitas Metro specific plan will establish design guidelines. They'll be specific for this neighborhood, as well as the public realm, to ensure a high quality environment, walkable scale, and strong sense of place. We're also working with the folks who are going to be developing the citywide design guidelines for ministerial review. Two more final principles. We are assuming, and we'll get into this in our third session of this series, development will be subject to the same fees throughout Milpitas Metro. Different agreements might be made for individual parcels, but the baseline will be that the fees will be the same across the district. And then finally, residential, commercial, and retail and hotel development will be limited by this plan, although future plan updates may increase site capacity. This is really important because it means that we're planning thus far, given your input, to plan for a fair amount of development. We're incorporating the innovation district, and those plans and guidelines are really coming out of the general plan, and then quite a few residential units. This does not mean that by the end of our plan period, Milpitas Metro will be full. There will still be some potential for evolution in this neighborhood. If the city, 2 housing elements from now, because this is probably not the last one, needs to think about other places to put affordable housing, and needs to think about what else is going to happen here, or 10 years from now, wants to plan again and relook at the plan, there will be some flexibility in the neighborhood, in the district. So this map summarizes our proposed land use changes. This is a fairly general map, so we do expect that as we get into the nitty-gritty of zoning, we might do something like look at parking ratios and that kind of thing. So it might be a little bit different than the existing zoning, but this is to give you the overall idea of what we're proposing. So what we're proposing is, like along the northern edge of Great Mall Parkway, where we have mixed use, which is fairly intense. We're proposing to allow mixed use on the other side of Great Mall Parkway, again, fairly intense just here along BTA and these smaller edge sites, and then a little bit lower scale on the internal part of the Great Mall, and then lower still adjacent to this residential neighborhood. Again, I do want to really reinforce Jane's point. We are not telling Simon that they need to change anything. We really want to support their business. It's a really important, regional hub and also source of income for the city. But the evolution of the mall, of the footprint itself, does not necessarily mean that the retail profitability will change. And in fact, retail has been transitioning into smaller spaces that are more easily accessible, that are more experience-based, that can still bring in the same number of sales. They just don't need to have as much stock on hand, for example. And so the retail market's changing, and Simon is really on top of that and want to maximize their flexibility, and we want to allow them to do a little bit of shifting around there. And as Jane mentioned, if people move into this neighborhood, that actually provides more customers for the Great Mall. The blue hash in here at the southern end of the Great Mall subdistrict, and then over here on this VTA parking lot site, and here in the adjacent to this other piece of the innovation district where there will be no residential, there are areas where we really like to see some employment base. And we want to look at innovative models for this. Are there ways where we want to encourage workspace, not only at the bottom of a residential building, but maybe integrated into a residential building as more people work from home, for example. We're looking at best practices for this. Keep and acknowledging the fact that these parcels actually already allow residential development use. Then as we look into the other areas, I mentioned briefly, this is the innovation district that is called out in the general plan documentation. And so the 3 million square feet that Jane was talking about, that is coming out of the calculations that essentially what you get if you play out what's in the general plan is 3 million square feet. So it's quite a bit. And then we're including this BART station area in the innovation district, just in terms of our nomenclature here. Down here in Tango, we're expecting that this is purely residential, that it's not mixed use. Maybe you'll have a cafe adjacent to the park or something like that, but a little bit more intense, so not townhomes. That doesn't really feel appropriate in the neighborhood anymore. And then, but not too high. So this would be around 4 to 5 stories. And then what we're suggesting for the Main Street corridor over here, where the city owns some parcels and it could be a great opportunity for affordable housing development, is that this matches the development that's going in right now, that if you can see her is Jessica's background, which is, I think it's a 6 or 7 story building. So that would be a little bit higher. And you can see how this mirrors what's existing. So that would be urban residential over here along Main Street, a little bit lower and multifamily residential here in Tango, and then higher mixed use, and then gradually lower mixed use over here. Okay, so one of the questions that we asked in our staff report is, do you support these locations for the land uses as described? And do you support this level of intensity? Because where we are now with the plan is we're going to begin writing the plan and beginning to bring policies forward. And there was a fair amount of that in the staff report. And I'll get into it a little bit more, but these are questions that we're going to come back to at the end when we have our conversation. Okay, so here's the other question. Do you support the densities and intensities of land use that I just described? And please do stop me. I didn't talk about Huret Court, but the idea here is, again, that we'll get a little bit denser, around 5 stories or something like that, here in the existing residential and fast food spot, which mirrors the adjacent development while bringing it up a little bit. And then we have our commercial spaces that I referred to. And here are our overarching land use goals and policies. So the way that the plan will be written is, as Jane mentioned, it's going to be a streamlined form of the last plan. And actually what we did is we made a spreadsheet of every policy in the existing plan and went through it with city staff and said, do we want to continue this? Do we want to modify this, et cetera, et cetera? And so we took all of that data in and then thought about the vision that we've gone through with all of you. And we came up with these overarching goals. And the way the plan will be structured will be like an outline. So the goals are, the big ideas in each chapter or each topic. And then we'll have strategies and action items to work towards those goals in the plan. The first is that we would like to have a mix of uses in Milpitas Metro. Right now there's tons of residential and regional retail, but we want to create a more granular space where people want to be outside. It's a very transit-oriented neighborhood, and we want to capitalize on that and build on that. We are, our direction so far from council has been to plan for the development of between 5,000 and 7,000 housing units in Milpitas Metro. Again, this is really important from the housing element perspective, because these sites will be used in the housing element to help the city comply with the regional housing needs allocation. It should be final on Thursday, I believe. We also want to activate the streetscape where it makes sense. So we're not going to require mixed use blanketed like peanut butter across the whole district, but really say, where is it feasible? Where is it economically viable for us to have mixed use? And where can we allow flexibility for that? Where can we allow gyms and services and that kind of thing instead of purely retail? So we have an active ground floor that is active because it's feasible. And again, Jane mentioned, that's along key corridors and at key nodes where we know that people will be out on their feet. We want to ensure that we have adequate public services throughout the district. One of the key portions of that is the idea of allocating some space for a police station adjacent to the BART station. There's a parcel where that could potentially work. We want to make sure that Community spaces are located in places where people can easily access them, easily and safely access them. And then finally, we want to accommodate small businesses, larger office uses, R&D, particularly in the innovation district, and technology users. So that brings us to, I think, yeah, the end of our presentation. And so we have these 3 questions for you. Do you support the land use policies as described, or do you have changes you'd like to propose? Do you support the locations for land use as described? And do you support the densities and intensities of land use as described? I do want to mention that, again, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about transportation, traffic, and so on. And then we're going to talk about open space. So we can definitely talk about those a little bit, but we're going to be really diving into those in our next meeting. So Mr. Mayor, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I will skip around if we want to look at any more of this.
Hey, thank you all for the presentation and the work that you put in to really take our formerly transit area specific plan to a new, back into this century, I guess. I think so. I really enjoyed it. Before we go to our city council here, let's go to public comment. I'll get that out of the way. So we'll go to public comment here. If there's anybody joining us here on Zoom, attendees, if you'd like to provide a public comment, and we are doing 2 minutes as earlier. All right, first up we have Tim. Welcome, Tim.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Tim Bobian representing the Santa Clara County Association of Realtors and our 6,000 plus members. SCORE strongly supports and emphasizes the importance of a sufficient housing element included in the Milpitas Metro specific plan. It is no secret that in the region as a whole and the city of Milpitas, we are suffering a severe housing crisis, and one main solution is to increase the supply, which will increase the affordability as well. This location is perfect for further densified transit-oriented mixed-use development that creates a livable, walkable, vibrant community. Mixed-use housing developments in Milpitas will help carry the economic recovery resulting from the COVID pandemic with new opportunities for small businesses and much-needed well-paying jobs to create these mixed-use developments. SCORE supports the creation of market-rate, affordable ownership and rental units in the plan to create housing for all members of the community, along with more affordable ownership opportunities, which helps allow families in the region to build an equity in their future. These types of communities are a safe, vibrant, and critical addition to our region. As stated in the report earlier, housing is especially important in the MMSP to address the city's RHNA obligations. The character of this area as an urban transit-oriented center allows for denser housing than the neighborhoods surrounding it. It is a very appropriate place for housing growth in the city of Milpitas. And if housing is not planned for here, it will need to go somewhere else to help the housing crisis and reach RHNA goals. Thank you again for your time and diligent work on this plan. Again, Tim Bobian representing the Santa Clara County Association of Realtors.
Thank you, Tim. I do appreciate your very kind words there, and I have to agree with you on a lot of those things. Okay, so let's see here. Public comment continues. Yes, next to Urvish Kumar Mehta.
I think there's been quite a big conversation about the Milpitas Metro Plan. I think what is the most important consideration here is that when such kind of a Milpitas Metro Plan is being developed, the jurisdiction is required to be evaluated very well. The first come first is to put the city into the district-wide region and create and assign appropriate council members, associated with that, so that the city of Milpitas and the citizen can address the issues within the city accordingly, and as well as when it is required, such kind of amendments also are required to be made. That with that amendments, if the jurisdictions and as well as the land acquisition area of the city is required to be expanded, so that can be done as well. Also, it is important to note here that while working on developing the Milpitas Metro Plan, it is important that the city of Milpitas and as well as the citizen you be aware that what are the ways and what are the different legals, compliance, integrity actions that is also required to be in place to maintain such standard for the city as well. Because city of Milpitas is going to be turned into the Milpitas metro plan. So that's going to be the city. You know, it's going to be the metro city. It's not going to be the just city of Milpitas.
Thank you very much. Public comment continues. Anybody else? We are here. Okay, going once, going twice. I don't see any further virtual raised hands. Okay, back up. Oh, okay, we do see one. Next up, yeah, Frank Bush.
Hello, I'm a resident of Milpitas, and I had a couple questions about the low-income housing, or suggestions, I guess, since you can't answer them. But I hope that we're planning on integrating low-income housing with market rate housing, so we don't develop, you know, a segregated neighborhood of just low-income housing, because I think it makes a healthier community by having, you know, a mix of people. And I also hope that we're not going to have some, you know, a developer fee that could be paid so they can avoid building low-income housing. And that's about it.
Thank you, Frank. Appreciate you. Yes, we do have a 15% affordable housing sort of set aside hall ordinance here in town, and council's been amazing with ensuring that there's built-in affordable housing. So we appreciate you. You nailed it, Frank. Thank you. Okay. All right. Now that's it with public comment. If you have your virtual raised hand up, I'm not going to sit here and wait for folks, but I appreciate you. You can always follow via email to the City Council of Milpitas. Back to the virtual dais. Can we get the slide here with the questions from our very valued presenters and guests, or get that slide up with the questions? I know our professionals here with the Milpitas Metro are looking for some feedback, so I'm going to be quick with mine. Oh, there it is right there. Okay, well, at first I just want to say, again, a great job. I think most, if not all of it, was really forward thinking, especially the development opportunities on the southern end of the Great Mall property. I thought that was pretty impressive to imagine that when folks do walk from the BART station to the Simon property, there's that kind of route that is going to be very full of traffic, pedestrian wise, and why not develop there to capture traffic? I always see footprints and even vehicles as traffic commercial opportunities, or other ways to capture business. Innovation Center looked great. Innovation District looked really great. Just a lot of careful planning around the fringes of the Milpitas Metro. I appreciate that. So all in all, I'd say continue to move forward with what you all are working on. Generally looks great, but I'll be a little more specific here. Really quick questions for number one. So I'll just say yes on that too. Yeah, really strategic with the land use for all the locations within the plan. So yes, and then three. Yeah, I think three would be where should be finer time put into, but absolutely there's going to have to be some density in those areas, because that's, you know, transit oriented development in itself, and we have to have that. I'm not a fan of high density myself, but I do acknowledge and really respect and recognize some of the 5-story high density housing we have over there. You know, certain places it does make sense. Along the light rail specifically, it just absolutely does make sense there. But I guess my last comments are, before I go to the City Council, and folks, please raise your virtual raised hands. My colleagues, what was I going to say? Yeah, I think our longtime residents, folks that have been here, folks that are living in the suburban side of town, they're really, I think folks are going to really appreciate the commercial aspect, the mixed use Obviously, the industrial is going to be there with offices and things, but I think our residents will really appreciate the commercial numbers that you laid out there. Just the new footprint of commercial. I think our longtime residents, folks that have been here since 1954, are going to really appreciate that. And Southside Milpitas has always been known for a lack of amenities, shopping, and this Milpitas Metro Plan certainly provides those needs, those services, commercial zoning, mixed-use zoning for folks on the south side of town and all across town as well. So I want to go to my colleagues here, looking for my colleagues here. If you'd like to provide feedback, now is the time, because we're going to keep this meeting moving. We're going to keep this meeting moving, folks. Okay, next up here we have the Vice Mayor, Carmen Montano.
Thank you, Mayor. So some questions for staff. The Great Mall brings in a lot of revenue, more than what housing would bring in. So how much do we bring in right now? Or maybe putting it in another words, what percentage will, if we do more high density housing compared to commercial, what would be the difference in loss revenue to the city?
I can attempt to. Oh, go ahead.
Ned,
I
go
can
ahead.
attempt to respond to that, and then Christina, you can add on. So you have probably have a few more details. I think the concept here is the idea of a trade-off that, right, and we're looking specifically at land use. So right now, the area that encompasses the Great Mall is only allowed to have retail development. So that, of course, is what is developed there. And as was presented as part of the presentation, the idea is that over time it may evolve into something different. And I think the attempt here is that as it goes through that evolution, the city would like to have some control, but some guidance over how that future development occurs. And all we're saying here is that as the Great Mall changes over time, that it would be not just strictly retail, but it would include retail and housing. And so as that occurs, also as included in the presentation, the retail would still be there. And of course, there would still be revenue generated for the city. For the most part, it would just be in a different form. As, for example, as you added residents to the area, then those residents would have retail needs. And it wouldn't necessarily be a large department store in this case, but it might be smaller stores and restaurants and services like cleaners and florists and those types of services that the residents who live there would use and could walk to rather than driving. So it's just I guess it's more of a transition from one land use to another. And instead of having just one type of use there, which right now is largely retail, regional retail, we would begin to introduce other types of uses there as well that would then support other types of retail. So it's kind of a trade-off, if you will.
So it is common knowledge that businesses bring in more revenue to the city than housing. And since the Great Mall is a regional stop, you do get a lot of folks from all over the Bay Area that come, and they do bring their money to our city. And I do know that we do get substantial amount of income or revenues from the Great Mall. And I know we're looking out 20 years out from now or so, and I know that Simon Properties is thinking about transitioning, and that would include housing. I do believe we do need housing there if they're going to be making some changes, high density. However, I want to make sure that we keep the commercial, because that's what it will help sustain the city coffers for the public support. So I do believe in mixed use, but not to make it really less to where it's only for the residents. It should be an attraction for it should still continue to be regional, but make it more appealing, I guess, for a regional destination. The other question I had was skyscrapers. How tall can a building be? I know that there's some guidelines, but I'm not sure what those guidelines are.
So so what we're talking about really has to do with not a high rise or skyscraper, but something which is much more mid-rise, most likely 5 stories to maybe 7 or 8 stories, because that's what can be made with wood construction and concrete. And if you go to like a skyscraper, and in some cases that might be appropriate in like very, very limited places, but if you go to a skyscraper, how tall could it be? That's something we've been asking ourselves as well. And if you think about how much it costs to use steel to build, we're thinking that it needs to be, in order for that to make sense, we see, over 10 to 15 stories, so much bigger. There is one skyscraper, it's not really a high rise, that is entitled in the Piper subdistrict already, but it hasn't come yet because it's not completely economically viable. We are seeing in Oakland and obviously in San Francisco, but some and in San Jose, that there are taller buildings like that are now possible economically. But how tall are they? They can be 150 to 200 feet tall. But what we typically experience is really just what is at the ground floor. And actually in the TASP, that was allowed, but it had a special exception to make it allowable. So while I think it, yeah, so I think we're.
So what was allowable, the 5 stories or higher than 5 stories?
Higher than 5 stories. So, but you had to do a special arrangement. So I think, when we're considering this, we're thinking of it as exceptions, not the rule.
And that's probably the wrong term that I use, instead of skyscraper, I should use high rise, because,
No, we're always trying to figure that out. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah, so I do support the land use policies, but as I mentioned, I'd like to not have so much housing that it takes away the potential for revenue stream to our city. And then I also like to make it, have the trails, like a bicycle spoke, where you could have the Great Mall be the hub, and then you'll have different trails. I think that would really make a community where it's interconnected. So that the key word is to be interconnected. I think that's what will make this place a very vibrant place, if we can interconnect, let's say, Park Place area, the Old Town Main Street, the Pines, the Lions area. So all these interconnections, and then to the BART, of course. I think that's key to make this place work. You also asked, do you support the locations for land uses described? Yes, I do. I like your concept of having some buildings right there by the Great Mall Parkway. And the densities, it makes sense because BART is there, and the whole point is to try to get people off their cars and use mass transit. So as I mentioned, that would be, what I would like to see there is we need to have water, some type of waterfall or water features, because those slides that you showed us, the what's really attracts people is when there's water and trees and water. And you also mentioned about a little park area. So that is really important to have that, make this a really nice place for people to come and shop and live there. So Oh, one more question. What will happen to Home Depot? Will it still be there? Will it disappear? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, your guess is as good as ours, but our guess is that it's going to be there for quite a long time.
Okay.
That's a very profitable.
I like all your concepts, all your ideas, and making it a walkable community. That's what I'd like to see. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Montano. I really appreciate it. I think you nailed a lot of points there. And we've had some development that happened within the task with the integration of sort of water fountains and so sort of things. So the more the merrier. Okay, great. Looking to my colleagues here. Let's keep the meeting moving, folks. We're on a really great pace here. I love to continue the pace of this meeting. Yes. Next up, we have Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. If before I answer these questions, I would like to see the page, the slide that shows the use and unuse of land use. You show the graph. I think it's colored yellow. I think it's about five or yes, that one. So can you please briefly again explain this one? I'm looking for the unused ones. What will be left after this general plan?
So I think I'm just gonna make sure I heard you right. So you're wondering what will be
What would
left?
be left in terms of industrial, commercial, anything that we have now?
Will
that you
anything
can
stay the
touch?
way it is?
Yes.
Well, we're planning for changes, but we are expecting some things not to change. So what we're doing with the specific plan is really thinking about how it can be completely built out, but we know that not all of it will happen. So it's almost like kind of reversing the thought. Hopefully I'm making sense, but we're trying to say what the possibilities could be for all the parts that have transitioned from what it used to be. I don't know.
So
Can someone explain it better?
I think I kind of understand what you're saying, but it still didn't answer my question in terms of what are those areas that you will not be touched after this.
Oh, okay. With the Milpitas Metro, I think maybe Christina, if we go back to one of the very first ones, something like this, what we're not addressing in the Milpitas Metro plan are the things that have already been developed. So anything that's kind of new housing or new development, that's staying the way it is because it was built recently. And so we're really trying to address the places that did not change since 2008 when the original task was approved. And so we're kind of focusing on sort of what was left from the last specific plan to address in this one. So we're not addressing most of McCandless or Piper and some of the developments along Great Mill Parkway and Capitol that you've seen built recently. Those are not addressed in the Milpitas Metro Plan because they've already done what was needed.
Okay,
And if
I got it.
If I could just add really quickly, so where we're proposing a transition, like over here from industrial to residential, that was already a transition that was proposed in the last plan. So we're not adding that. We're tweaking it a little bit, but we're not really making that transition. We are expanding the plan area a little bit, but again, it's sort of a similar use that was planned. The bigger change is allowing residential in the Great Mall subdistrict. And here again, we're not going to force anything to change. The existing uses can remain, but that's the biggest policy shift in terms of allowing land use.
Okay, I got it. we can go back to the 3 questions so I can answer them. Do you support the land use as described, or do you have changes? I support the land use. Do you support the location? Yes. Do you support the densities? Yes, as long as it's not skyscrapers. Oh, the tall ones. The reason why I support the land use policies is that I've seen this presentation before. I'm really excited about to see the neighborhood commercial mix. And I think there's a term for that one, NE something. But it's really good combination of, I know Vice Mayor Montano has a concern about losing the commercial aspects of it, but it really with the mixing of the housing and the commercial, that is really an ideal goal. So yes to all 3. Thank you, Mayor Tran.
You're welcome, Councilmember Chua. Really like the variety of feedback we're getting here for this agenda item tonight. I know we got a couple more members of my colleagues here at the council. We'll look to you if you have any public comment. Next up here, we have Councilmember Fan.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Great job. Really support all the concepts going forward. I think it's exciting. I think residents have a lot to be excited about, especially with the high quality amenities that we're going to have to offer. And there's just so much potential. So I certainly support the land use policies. I guess one of the questions I have is there currently exists some land or rather some parcels. It's really just storage space. Where do we foresee or what do we foresee that to be in terms of long range planning as it relates to this? And where do we go about with the parcels as they currently exist? Like if the property owner, is content on the revenue that they're bringing in from just storage space, what can we do to incentivize the best and maximize potential for that space?
I'll start and then maybe others might add. Well, this is something we've been asking ourselves. What this the storage space is doing quite well. What would incentivize someone to change? And we know that the location of the storage was prior to the Milpitas BART station opening. And now that it's open, and as we see people using transit more, and we may see the recovery of office and commercial use over time, that in the future, that this distance between what you see in the middle where the BART station is and where that current storage is right now, how that might be really attractive to someone who speculates on the land, or for the public storage to also increase the value of their land. So it doesn't mean they have to change, but it means that the potential for higher value for their land is there. Plus it made a lot of sense also because of its location right next to 680. So we really see that it's going to be what it is until it it complies with the general plan and the innovation district envisioned for that space. Christina.
Yeah, just to add a little bit to what Jane was saying. So a lot of the policy framework for the innovation plan was laid as part of the general plan, which is really allowing a lot more development than is there now. So, when we talk about development, we talk about essentially if you took the building and you covered the whole parcel, that would be one floor area ratio unit, right? That would be 1 FAR. Right now, I think it's probably allowed to be like half an FAR or something. The general plan policy allows 2.5. So that's way, way, way denser than what's there now. So just being able to build that much more space is a significant incentive. It's right near and an freeway on-ramp. And then from the perspective of this policy document, we're really proposing this connection, which is a key part of the plan, and just how do we make this feel part of this larger network so that folks, tech workers or something might want to come here and walk from Barton, walk along the creek and that kind of thing. And then we're also going to look at the fee structure. So we're going to talk about that in a couple of meetings about what's appropriate in terms of fees for commercial space so that they would pencil out and the city would get the kind of uses it wants to see.
And if I could just add to that really quickly from a practical point of view. So the land value, in most cases, or a great contributing factor to that is the land use regulation. It's the one thing that the city controls. Now, you're exactly right. We don't control what the property owner does with their property, but by changing that land use designation in the general plan and then furthering that through the specific plan, the city does have a great deal of influence over the value of that property. And I'm almost certain, I don't have any evidence, I'm almost certain that the reason that those storage units were built there, going back 30, maybe even 40 years, is that it was right off the freeway. It was very easy access from all of the people who wanted to use that storage in San Jose and surrounding areas. And at that time, the land was very cheap in Milpitas, and so it developed with storage. Now, we don't have any beachfront property in Milpitas, and we don't have a golf course in Milpitas, and generally those two areas are the higher value, and that's where you'll often see high-rise development and higher value development. But what we do have in Milpitas is that BART station, a great economic driver, as well as the 680 freeway. And this property located right in between those two makes it a very valuable location for something much more than mini storage. So as my preliminary comments when I talked about aspirational, our aspiration is that we would take the highest and best use of that property. And so right now, it functions just fine. And, the property owner may be just happy as a clam with collecting the rents on the mini storage. But if we, as a city, are able to tweak that a bit by changing the underlying land use designation, it just provides an opportunity for them to get a greater value out of their property. And there may be other incentives that we could add later down the road that would then help them to develop. And that's part of our economic development strategy for the overall city. And I would say some of those same concepts would apply to the Great Mall site as well, but certainly to this area where it's underdeveloped as mini storage right now.
Sure. Are there any parcels that we might want to acquire as the city, so that we can have a much stronger, grasp on as to what to do with that location? Because the challenge that we have is so many different parcels that are owned by so many different parties. Many of them are vacant, and to do anything feasible, you'd have to do an assembly of the parcels. So,
excuse me.
Sorry. Yeah, go for it.
I was going to say you're exactly right. Obviously, property ownership will give you maximum control over what happens there. It's one of the sad downsides to the dissolution of redevelopment agencies a number of years ago, is that was often the tool that cities used to do exactly what you're talking about, land parcel assemblage, so that they could then control the type of development that happened on that property. I think that we'll continue to see that as an issue even as we move from this plan, and certainly on Main Street, where we have a lot of smaller parcels. We are fortunate in this area that we do have some rather large parcels that VTA and others own that we can partner with them to develop, and that might be our greatest opportunity in the short term, short of owning the property ourselves.
Sure. And I also bring it up because it doesn't necessarily need to be a complete redevelopment of certain areas, but just infrastructure improvements can go a long way towards affecting the value of these properties. Yep. So to the extent that we can work on those and even collect fees to pay for these upgrades, I think it really go a long way, because a lot of this is conceptual, but then the other element that is a key factor is funding it, and to the extent that we can do our part as a public agency, I think that's something to consider. But overall, this is amazing work that you guys are doing. So.
Yeah, and I would like to add my other this under this council's direction and leadership. The council just in the past year has made some very strategic purchases of property in the Tango area. One for the bridge line. To your point, Councilmember Fan, the infrastructure is very important, and that bridge that will connect essentially that entire Tango neighborhood directly to the BART station is a key piece of not only the transit area plan, but this new metro plan. And that's one of the reasons why we're able to look at the remaining vacant parcels or developable parcels. They're currently developed with large industrial buildings, but if those were to be redeveloped in residential or mixed use development, we will likely come back to you with a proposal to have higher densities now, because the property we anticipate the property will be more valuable because of that direct connection to the BART station. It's a very good point. And the city, those purchases of that property were very strategic in that now we control those. And you're right, if some of that is developed as parkland, it makes that area so much more, those are great amenities. It makes that area so much more attractive and valuable. People will want to live there. We already have people living in the Toll Brothers homes that are, the townhouses that are being built, asking us when their park is going to be finished. So they've seen our plan, and that they are looking forward to the amenities that are in the vision for that area.
That's really encouraging to hear. And yeah, I'm completely supportive. Great job, guys. And what are the next steps? When can we expect a finalized version to vote on? Great, gotcha.
Sorry, no. So first we're gonna come back in 2 weeks and talk some more about transportation, mobility, circulation, and traffic. And then we're gonna talk one more time before we come back with the draft. We're gonna talk about the public realm, like the trails, the open spaces, the parks, and the TATF, so the fee, the infrastructure fee, as you were just mentioning. Mm-hmm. And then we're gonna work on the draft and bring that back to you in a couple months, probably sometime mid-year. And we're starting the EIR soon so that we can really get something together before the end of the year.
So would we want to identify, the projects coming into this location as part of the plan only, or is there any, plan to create a district so that, specific improvements that mentioned earlier could be funded?
Let's talk about that at our third meeting.
Okay.
We'll get down and we'll get you an answer for that in greater detail.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, that's all for me.
The short answer is that we do have a fee area for this plan area.
Great. Thank you very much. Very good. And we'll go now to Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you to all those who have been working on this and for definitely taking all of our considerations into this framework that has been presented today. I am really excited to see Milpitas thrive in a very unique way that is going to be able to distinguish us. And so I do support the land use policies that have been presented before us. Again, I know that we have to reach our RENA numbers. And so that is something that I know our community sometimes may not understand, but these are the mandates that come to us as a city. And so we do have the obligation to fulfill those. And so definitely making sure that there is the mixed use. I really like the mixed use that has been presented, and definitely just keeping in mind some of the public comments, which I also support, which is making sure that we are including that affordable housing element into these. I do understand that the density may be higher, but I do like that it's going to be in one area. Personally, I would rather have it in an area that has already been planned to move into a very metropolitan feel versus moving those elements into more of the neighborhoods, which is something that I do know that our Milpitas community does not support. So I definitely support the density. I know it's different. I usually would not support high density, but we do need to get creative. And this is one of the places that we need to put it, because if we don't put it here, it's going to have to go somewhere else. And so that's, for me, that's why I am supporting it, because I do feel that this is the appropriate place to put it. So folks could move, hopefully we could all move into a place where we could work, live, and use less vehicles, and really have those connectors be available to us in our city. So thank you so much for your thoughts, for your work, and for an amazing presentation. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, great. That rounds it up for the Milpitas City Council here in our feedback. Let's go to our presenters to wrap it up here. And I think we'll have received the item. We've got 3 of our guests here. Who should I go to? Let's see. I don't know. Alphabetical order. Christina, Jane, Kevin, anybody? Any final concluding remarks?
We really appreciate your feedback. It's really vital to this plan. And we appreciate the feedback of all of the community members who have been able to give us their thoughts and ideas. We're really excited to work on this. It could be really transformational and a wonderful asset for the people of Milpitas. And we're looking forward to talking with you about traffic and transportation, and foot traffic and car traffic and bike traffic and all of those things. So thanks again. Jane, do you have any final thoughts?
I just want to thank you all for giving us such great comments, and for sticking through some of this really detailed information. And we really are getting a lot out of it. So thank you so much for your time and for your thoughts.
If I may, I'll leave the last word to Ned, but to the comments that were made and some of the questions, I think it's important that we all remember that a plan, the word aspirational was used a lot. The plan is the city's vision. And so you'll have property owners who may or may not be ready to do something, but you want to have a plan that's in place that the city loves, that inspires property owners, that eventually brings them around to what you want to do. And remember that you have tools, whether you own a property or not. You control the streets, you control the utilities. You have a lot of ways of handling their desire to do something with their property. So while you cannot force them to do something, you can sort of lead them along the way and get them to do the things that the city wants. And it really is the city's document, and the property owners are participants. And hopefully we partner well with them and get them to come along and do what we all want to do. So thank you.
Thank you all. It's certainly one of the most exciting, special, maybe the best plan update in our city's history here. So we're doing great. Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you.
So yeah, That's item number 11. Moving on here, 12 and 13 have been on the consent calendar and approved. And I'm just going to jump in here. Let's go to number 6. Number 6 was pulled from the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you,
Sheila.
Mayor Tran. I pulled that one, and can I have Steve Fox put up page 67 of the packet that we received? It's the service agreement. Hello?
Yeah, I think our staff's pulling up the
Oh, okay.
document.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. Thank you, staff.
Thank you, staff. Oh, I can. Who's out there?
Whomever, welcome. Is that our Chief Jared, Chief Fernandez, or will you be presenting item number 6 here?
No, actually, it will be Steve Fox. But I just wanted to clarify the page number. I thought I heard 67.
67 of our packet. There you
Oh,
go.
your packet. Okay, so if it's a specific page within the contract, Captain Fox doesn't have. He wouldn't be able to correlate that page.
If you go down more, it's page 60. It's the service contracts. It's the detailed one that
Right.
shows the 10-year contract. Further down. Oh, are you on the agenda? I should be on the. Okay, I'm gonna ask my questions anyway.
Okay.
Who's answering?
It will be Steve Fox. So
Hey, Steve, are you there? Steve Fox?
I'm here, Mayor.
Okay, there he is. Okay, take it away.
Steve, hi.
Hi.
I know this is a 10-year contract, and this is granted to Motorola with no competition because it's the sole vendor. It's for the service contract for the nice logging solution and the location systems for fire station as well as the police station alarming system, I think. Is that correct?
So the service agreement is for the NICE logger and the location fire alerting system.
Right. Okay. That are both used by police and fire, correct? Is that right?
Well, the NICE logger is used by police, and the location is the fire alerting system, which is used by the fire department.
Okay. And this is in conjunction with the other Silicon Valley Regional Interoperability Authority members of 15 municipal members. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. My question is, why 10 years? Did you get a discount for 10 years if you get 10 years?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, our commitment to the radio project is 10 years. And so that 10-year agreement covers the maintenance for the duration of that contract. In addition, the 10-year agreement is the standard Motorola agreement. And there's some benefits to having a 10-year agreement. The most important being that the cost to the city is lower. And so if you look at the numbers, you'll see that there's an incremental fee increase over every year, which I believe it's about 2.5% to 4%, which is heavily discounted as opposed to having a shorter contract, like a 5-year or 1-year contract. Those fees increase at a higher rate over those shorter contracts.
My concern is, what if we change our device? What happens?
Well,
Is there a early termination provision on this contract?
Well, we won't.
What happens if we change it?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. We won't change our equipment because this is the equipment that's supported by Motorola, which is part of the radio project. And so we have a commitment to the radio project, and we've committed to those products throughout that contract. And so for us, the concern would be just maintaining that service for those pieces of equipment throughout the duration of that contract and our commitment to the radio project.
Who did we commit that commitment to? Who did we commit that? You said we have a commitment for this. Who did we commit that?
To the Silicon Valley Regional Interoperability Agreement.
Is there what happens if they change their platform? It's 10 years is a long time. I could see 5 years, but 10 years. What happens? Is there a way out? Early termination provision for this contract?
Councilmember Chester may step in. Walter Rossman, Deputy City Manager. So the Silicon Valley Regional Interoperability Authority is a joint powers authority where the city is a member, and we sit on the board of the JPA. And the infrastructure just built on the entire county over the last 5 to 7 years is basically the radio infrastructure which all public safety agencies are using.
Say that again, how many years?
We started building out about 5 years ago, and the infrastructure is the same infrastructure we use across the entire county of Santa Clara for all public safety agencies, fire and police.
No, I saw that you changed, you acquired a new device in 2020.
Well, the agreement or the service went live in February 2020. So that commenced the use of the products. The agreements that were in place for those products was done earlier as the project was built out and agreements were made. And so the go live date was February 2020. That was a year ago. And so that agreement covered 1 year service. We're coming up on the expiration of that, which leads us now to the 10-year agreement.
So your previous agreement was 1 year and now you're jumping into 10 years?
No, the initial coverage of the equipment was for 1 year when the service went live, and that was in February 2020. And so that year has elapsed, and we're coming to the end of that first year. And so now we need an agreement for the additional 10 years of maintenance coverage for the locution system and the nice logger.
The initial purchase of the agreement included 1 year of maintenance.
If I can give some history, Councilmember Chua, if I can give some history to it. Back in 2010, the Silicon Valley Regional Interoperability Authority was formed. And what the project was to bring interoperability to all the law enforcement and fire agencies in Santa Clara County. The organization in 2012 went out for a vendor solicitation, and Motorola was selected as the vendor to move forward with this project. In 2018, we went to council and there was a resolution to adopt the Motorola solutions in line with SVRIA. And that included our dispatch consoles, our police radios, the nice logger system, and then also the locution system, which fire uses for their fire station alerting when a fire call comes in. So a lot of this was already in place. When we received the equipment in 2020, that initial installation of the equipment covered 1 year of service. That 1 year is now expired, and this contract is for the remaining service life of the equipment, which was previously adopted by council in 2018 for a 10-year agreement for Motorola to provide the service for the radios.
Did we do a comparison between a 5-year service contract versus a 10-year? How much we're going to save if you're telling me there's a discount? Because I see that's the iteration is 2.3, between 2.3 and 4%. What about if it's just 5 years? We didn't look at that.
So I did ask my staff that, who was doing the contracting, and they assured me that the 10-year contract has a lower increase in cost than the shorter term of the contract. I don't have the
Okay.
numbers by council member, but I did ask that question.
Okay, my last question is there an early termination provision in this contract?
I would have to come back to you on this one. This is part of the cooperative procurement contract and it's not attached to this, but it's leaning on a contract which is led by another agency. We're using the terms and conditions and the prices for this contract. So I looked quickly in the contract. There's nothing referenced right there, which you see in front of you. But the cooperative procurement contract most likely will have one. I can get back to you on this one.
I'm not comfortable with the 10 years, to be honest with you.
If I can,
From a 1 year to 10 years, that's kind of like
if I can
big jump.
also add to the discussion, I think council's been working on this since 2018, and I think we're just one city. Maybe we can provide more information for the council member, either Stephen or Chief. Other cities are doing the same thing, right? It's kind of a regional effort. Correct me if I'm wrong. And so, what other cities are also doing the 10-year agreement? If anybody can help.
Mayor, I can't speak to the other cities. I'm not exactly sure what they've agreed to. I just know that what we've been working on in terms of our service for the nice logger and the location, and that's something that we've been working on and had in place.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm comfortable with what's the amount that's on the agenda. It's really an amount not to exceed, and if we break it down over 10 years, it does kind of make fiscal sense to me. But I do hear the council members' concerns. Let's change this conversation a little bit. Let's go to Councilmember Fan here.
I was just gonna say that no, I agree with the mayor. It's very standard, these kinds of agreements, and I want to make sure that our public safety officials and first responders have the tools that they need to continue keeping us safe. I worry that additional delays are going to affect service and response times. So, I'm gonna call the question on this and move approval.
Okay, well, okay. Councilmember Chua, do you have any other pressing questions to add? The question is, there's no second yet.
Those are my concerns.
Yeah, I would say,
okay, there is, it's not expired yet. It will expire February 28, 2021. They're not gonna, with the Councilmember Fan's concern, we're not gonna let them not have that. I'm just questioning the length.
Councilmember Chua, let me ask you, how do you know we can get a better deal over a shorter agreement? Typically,
it's just the way it's presented. There should have been a comparison between 5 years and 10 years. There should have been a clear direction of an early termination provision for a 10-year contract. And I like your question about who else did a 10-year contract with Motorola.
Right.
I mean, technology changes really rapidly. What if something comes up better?
Yeah, let me check in with the captain here, Captain Fox. How long, the council, we've been trying to push this thing since 2018. And so certainly this is an item that we've been working on for some time. Maybe you can share a little bit more information as to all the work that your department's put into this to ensure that it is the best value to our city and residents.
I mean, Mayor, the one thing I'll add is, with the NICE logger system, it's a robust system. And the reason we chose that system is, number one, Motorola supports that NICE logger system. But there's other things to consider with that. And that is that it doesn't just record our police radios. It records our business lines, our calls to our detectives, and our calls to our dispatch center. And there's some other things to consider there. And that is at the police department, we want to ensure quality control. We want to be able to be responsive to Public Records Act requests, to evaluate our operations and making sure that we're doing things efficiently and best practice. And NiceLogger offers those capabilities. And to be very honest, my technical knowledge of dispatch is somewhat limited, but in my time overseeing the technical services division, I could tell you that the members of the police department have put a lot of work into ensuring that we are making a sound decision with the products that we are purchasing.
Great. And I'm reminded, I want to go to the vice mayor next here. I see the virtual raise hand for the vice mayor. But before I go to the vice mayor, I try to think like the vice mayor sometimes. Let me ask this question. And so this is a 10-year agreement. So we're fully covered, 10-year warranty, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let's go to the vice mayor, Carmen. I do see your virtual raised hand. Oh, come on.
Thank
now.
you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I
Smooth, you know.
I understand Councilmember Chua's concerns, but she is, and I like how she's thorough and thinking about, looking at all the ends. But after the presentation about 10 years, it's probably better, as was presented, that it's cost saving with 10 years, and also the compatibility and how it's interconnected with other systems that is important for efficiency for our public safety departments. So and it maybe if Councilmember Chua wants to defer this to get more information, or if you want more information on that, but I think this is the way to go, is to approve it, to move it forward. Right. So what would you like, Councilmember Chua? Thank you.
I just want to be clear. I'm not questioning the service maintenance from Motorola. I'm questioning those two items. The length of the contract, and also the way out. That's all. The quality of service, everything is okay. You guys know what you need, and I trust you guys that you have the best equipment here. I'm just questioning the way the contract was written. That's all.
If I could add,
yes, Chief, please.
I just want to add one more point. I think I do understand Council Members Chua's concerns, and I think one of the important pieces that we need to make sure is clear is that the equipment, the commitment to the Motorola brand, that's already in place for 10 years, regardless of how long this maintenance contract is, whether it's a 5-year contract or a 10-year contract. The commitment to Motorola was already formed in 2018. So even if we were to do a 5-year contract, we would still have to do a new contract for the remaining 5 years, because the commitment to the hardware and to the Motorola brand has already occurred. So really, this contract length just brings in line the maintenance with the hardware that was already selected. We're committed to Motorola either way, whether it's a 2-year contract, 1-year contract, doesn't matter.
There it is. Yep, there you go. Thank you, Chief. That was a very key piece of information there. Councilmember Chua, we are here for you. If not, I'm going to go ahead second. Councilmember Fan.
Oh. I just want to know. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. It's 10 years, right? According to Chief.
Yeah, so I would say, tomorrow, reach out to Chief or Captain, or
for next. For next contract, I would go with the deputy city manager. For next contract, please, if it's a long one like this, please break it down and show me a way out. Okay.
Make sure there's a way out. Sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We know.
Okay.
Great.
I will
I'll go-
support this.
Thank you. I'll second.
Thank you all for your input.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll second Councilmember Fan. All in favor of virtual roll call item number 6. Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Chua.
Based on the feedback tonight from everybody, thank you all. I support it. Yes.
Vice Mayor Montano.
Aye.
Myself is an aye. The motion is carried. Item number 6 is approved. Thank you, Chief and Captain, for providing us information as requested. Thank you very much. We're going to keep going here. We're doing great, everybody. I really appreciate everybody so much. Item number 14, let's go over our list of things. If folks, my colleagues have taken a look at the list and kind of the timeline of things, if you're happy, content, then that's fine. If there's any changes to your prerogative, just let us know. We are all here together. Really special when we get to, have our meetings and have an open discussion here. Next up, I want to go to our city manager here, Steve McGears.
Thank you, Mayor. I thought this might help you a little bit for all the benefit of all the council is this list that we're on right now, we're going to be really reviewing quite a bit of this on the 26th at your next week at the next meeting. So unless you had something urgent to let us know this week, we really have some time set aside in that meeting next week to go over many of these items.
So
Great. Next up, we'll go to Council Member Chua.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. To the city manager, can I add three columns maybe? Maybe if you can categorize, if you add another column that says 4 or 4+, meaning this is a 4-hour one, this is a 4+ hour. If you add that column, I think that would help us and you. Number 2 would be the responsible department or departments. Like if this is housing, if this is public works, if this is police, if it gives us an idea who will be the responsible person department. And number 3, from the council member who initiated the request, what is the objective? Is it safety? Is it quality of life? Is it
Under our council priorities, right? Yeah.
right? Is it revenue generation, expense reduction? Just an objective. It tells us. So when we go to our quarterly meeting retreat, so we can put priorities. So that would be the next column would be council priorities. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever?
That's great. We use the little symbols next to each one to make it nice and easy.
Yeah,
Great.
high, medium. So
But
those
you know
are
how we
my
have
suggestions.
we have the symbols for the 7 priorities, council priorities, right? We have like the little siren for public safety. So we'll use
Little
those.
emojis.
Yeah, you
Make
create
a little
whatever you want.
little more colorful for you. And as far as as far as the 4-hour the work commitment, that's something we're looking at now already. So we're thinking
So
alike.
it
Thank you.
helps us.
It helps staff
us
too.
to decide.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I like it. All right, going down the list here. Thank you very much, Councilmember Chua. All right, next up here with the virtual raised hand, we have Vice Mayor Montano.
thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I like Council Member Chua's ideas of putting him in different categories. I think that would help us tremendously. Also, what I would like to see is let me ask a question, City Manager. What if we have another idea? When do we put that now, or do we put it at the announcements? Is it still announcements? Will we put that under?
That's
I'll take this one. Yeah,
go ahead, Mayor.
Future agenda items. If you have a new idea, my recommendation to all my colleagues individually is to check in with our city manager first, just so that he can be in lockstep and be supportive of you and be there for you. I know most of you already do that. Yeah. Well, I would say just check in with
Steve?
To you, Vice Mayor. I would say you always check in with me. I appreciate you. But feel good and check in with our Steve as well. And then you can bring it to the meeting and, you know, propose, and, you know, folks
Yeah, I hear you.
are good to
Okay,
it.
no, and this was, actually, it was already brought up for the transit, it's a transit fee for Main Street, and I don't know if that's, if it's gonna be a separate, how do I rephrase it to where we create you know how we're doing that, we have the transit area specific plan, those fees to make sure we take care of all infrastructure. So, and I brought this up before, so I'm wondering, do I put it on this list?
Well, yeah, it's a new idea. So, you know, all new ideas go through the city council. That's just how it's going to be.
Yeah, I know, but, so, okay, so I guess the next meeting I will bring it up and because it was discussed already before.
Yeah, let's go to Steve here. Steve, I see you.
Thank you. Yes, it is number 23 on the list. So I think that describes it. What you have in there describes what your intention is.
There it is. Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, I'm corrected. I'm stand corrected. Thank you very much. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Next up, we have Councilmember Fan.
Thank you. Just want to thank all my colleagues for the very productive special retreat, or what do you call it? Is it called a retreat? Yeah, a retreat. I thought it was very productive. I encourage everybody to, you know, stick to the things that we agreed on. I'm not sure if we need to do an agenda item to recap everything, but you know, I think something was sent out to us already. I don't think we needed additional reminders, but I really do hope that we can just stick to what we all agreed on, because it really lays out, you know, how to streamline the process going forward and how we can avoid, you know, a lot of avoid going in circles. So I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, it was a very positive retreat and lots of positive vibes going forward. So thank you all.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Councilmember Fan. Next up here, we have Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councilmember Anthony, for that comment. I echo that one too. Steve, I'm missing one on my list, but you probably can see it better than I can, but I looked it up a few days ago and it's not there. You know, the list of local businesses that we do business with. I don't see it here.
It might be hard to find it right at the moment, but I believe it's here, and if not, we will correct. So either way, it will be covered. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
It was to purchase local, do more purchase local.
Right, please.
Yeah, and we're, you know, maybe you know, actually, it's coming back to me that staff is working on it. So I'm not sure that it made it on the list. I think it was a request for us, so we're already working on it. So it's one of those things that we talked about where staff can do it.
So much.
So we're on it. Yeah.
Thank you, Steve. That's awesome.
Great, fantastic.
I can see now everybody's looking at me thinking, how come you can't do that for all the other 25?
Yeah.
They're not all that simple. I'm sorry.
Great. No, you're good. You're good. Okay, great. So that's item number 14. Thank you, everybody. I don't see any further requests.
Oh, there's one more. Let me see. Raise hand.
Okay.
I don't see the council term limits ordinance, or is that in an?
Oh, that is on there. That is on there also. Yes, I know I saw it. Yeah.
All right, just want to make sure it's there.
You got it. We got you covered.
Folks. Come on, folks. All right.
Lower that hand.
All right, folks. All right, 15. I don't know if there's any qualms about it. If not, I think 15 is good. 15 is good. I don't see any concerns. I don't have any. Appreciate it being there. We're going to move towards adjournment, folks. First I want to just take a moment to thank our city staff, everybody on the staff side, department directors, folks, leadership, along with those department directors for every department. I want to thank our deputy city clerk, Pam, for stepping up to the challenge. And I know she's happy to do it. And everybody's playing a vital role right now. It's really a sensitive time here in our nation and in our city as well, our state, everything. And so I'm just thankful for everybody, including the city council, for everybody's public service to ensuring our community's needs are met. It means a lot. And I'm reminded of that this week with the tragedy that happened yesterday with the 7-year-old child that that passed away due to a senseless act. Our hearts go out to our police and fire department, first responders who were there at the scene. And this is a city where we're going to care about folks and take care of each other. And I just want to say it for the record that we are here to provide support for each other throughout the hardest times. And my thoughts go out to our community as well, all the families that are affected. And so, it doesn't make it easier with these high-powered winds. Just we're going to go through time periods. I've served with Anthony the longest, but I know Vice Mayor Montano served way before. But many can agree that in this line of work, representing our city, we're going to go through some hard times, some hard days, some hard weeks. And this week is definitely a challenging week in a challenging pandemic. And so I just want to recognize everybody and provide some positive feedback and reinforcement to what everybody's doing. Let's just keep doing it. I would adjourn this meeting in memory of the young child that passed away yesterday here in our city. So I'll take a few moments for their memory. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Get some rest.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.